Subhadramai ki
Jai,
jai, Shri Shri Gaurnitai ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai,
Jai,
Gaur Bhakta Brind ki jai,
Jai.
ISKCON Philadelphia Yatra ki jai. Hare Krishna. So we're reading from Chaitanya Charitamrita. It is Madhya Lila, chapter 6, verse 121. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Brinda
Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Jaya Shri Jaya
Jaya Dvaita Chandra
Bhakta
Jaya Gaura Bhakta Brinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Brinda
Jaya Jaya Shri
Shri
Chaitanya
Chaitanya
Jaya
Jaya
Nityananda
Nityananda Jaya
Jaya Dvaita
Jaya
Chandra Jaya
Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Bhakta
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Brinda
Jaya Jaya Shri
Jaya Shri
Chaitanya Jaya
Chaitanya Jaya
Nityananda
Nityananda
Jaya
Jaya
Dvaita
Dvaita
Chandra
Chandra
Jaya
Jaya
Gaura
Gaura
Bhakta
Bhakta
Vrinda
Vrinda
Granth Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai.
Jai.
Nisimapuru, maybe could you read the Bengali?
Sure. Hare Krishna. বেদান্তর শ্রবণ এই সন্ন্যাসিক ধর্ম নিরন্তর করো তুমি বেদান্তর শ্রবণ
And then do we do call and response, or do we just...
No call and response.
Okay. Vedanta Shravan, hearing of Vedanta philosophy. A, this, Sanyashira, of a person in the renounced order. Dharma, factual occupation. Nirantara, incessantly. Kore, do. Tumi, you. Vedanta, of Vedanta philosophy. Shravan, hearing. Translation. The Bhattacharya said, hearing Vedanta philosophy is a sannyasi's main business. Therefore, without hesitation, you should study Vedanta philosophy, hearing it without cessation from a superior person. I guess the superior person he's thinking of is probably himself. It's interesting. The Bhattacharya, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, of course, he's a Mayavadi. He Well, let me begin with prayers and then we can begin to comment. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurinmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langaite Girim Yat Kripatamaham Bande Shri Gurundina Taranam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Brinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, everyone. So it's wonderful to be back. Although online is effective. It works in our busy lives. But at the same time, there's nothing like being face to face with the devotees in person, and that's the best kind of scenario. But yeah, it's a weekday. Everyone's busy. So, but wonderful to be here in ISKCON Philadelphia. Thank you so much to everyone for your hospitality and kindness. It's been a wonderful stay. And later on today, we'll be moving on towards New Jersey. But Dronacharya asked me to give this last class. And it's wonderful. It's Chaitanya Charitamrita. Nothing better. Yeah, they say that the Bhagavad Gita is the words of the Lord. The Srimad Bhagavatam describes the activities of the Lord, and the Chaitanya Charitamrita gives insight into the mind of the Lord, real heart of the Lord, his activities, but why he performs these activities, the culture surrounding Krishna consciousness, the beautiful, wonderful etiquette and interactions. They're so sweet, so heart melting, and the philosophy. of Krishna consciousness is really in CC. It's interesting. Chaitanya Charitamrita is a remarkable book. It's wonderful in so many ways. It is a biography of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But actually, if you really look at it, Chaitanya Charitamrita is more a theology in the form of a biography. So after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu departed, there were 27 biographies which were written about him. 27 biographies. Nine of those are still in existence. The others were lost. So we have Chaitanya Bhagavat by Vrindavan Das Thakur. There's Chaitanya Mangal by Lochan Das Thakur. There's Chaitanya Charitamrita Mahakavya, Chaitanya Chandra Roy Natka by Kavi Karnapur. And then there's Chaitanya Charitamrita. So there's something which separates those various other biographies and Chaitanya Charitamrita. So what we see is CC is really focused on the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. That's really the kind of essence, the focus. After Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left, his legacy was really in three main places: Vrindavan, Bengal, and Orissa. Orissa, Puri, naturally, because Mahaprabhu stayed there for the, 18 years of his life. He was really stationed in Puri from 24 to, he took sannyas at 24. Um, you know, from the beginning until 24 years of age. I mean, talking about the age of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is a kind of contradiction in terms, but you understand what I'm saying. So from 0 to 24, he was in Bengal. Then he took sannyas. And for 6 years, he was traveling around India, preaching, traveling. And from 30 until 48, he left the world. Um, but for those 18 years, he was basically stationed in Puri. And that's the Antya Leela, going deeper and deeper and deeper into Krishna consciousness. Apani Achari Bhakti Sikhainu Savare. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, through his own bhakti, is teaching us all through his own example. Kaviraj Goswami explains in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So there has to be a time in life when we retreat from things. I was just, before we came here to Philadelphia, we stayed a few days in North Carolina, in Cary, in Hillsborough, and I was staying with one family, and the Prabhu was 46 years old. And I asked him, what's your life plan? What is your plan for this life? And he said, he was shocked by the question. And he said, well, I don't really know. He's been practicing Krishna consciousness for a good few years now. He's initiated and twice initiated. But what's the plan? He's got children who were 15 and 17, something like that, or 14 and 17. And he doesn't quite have a life plan. So I encouraged him to really think about that, to think at some point, he's 46. Shastra says, Pancham Urdvam Vanam Brajet. At the age of 50, one should enter the forest, meaning Vanaprastha. Vana, forest, prastha, to reside in the forest. What does that mean? To really retreat from external affairs more and more, and to focus more on bhajan, focus more on contributing to the Krishna consciousness mission, and invest whatever life airs one has in devotional service and in perfecting one's the goal of life. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed that example in the sense that he was really going deep, and we see in Antya Leela, as time goes on, he goes deeper and deeper and deeper and more absorbed, less external and more internal. Anyway, so Mahaprabhu's life was kind of like that. So naturally, Puri was a place, Orissa was a place where Mahaprabhu's legacy was significant. And then there was Vrindavan and Bengal. There was a striking difference between the mood in Vrindavan and the mood in Bengal. In Vrindavan, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sent various devotees, primarily the six Goswamis of Vrindavan. So he sent Rup Sanatan there. Jeev Goswami went there. Gopal Bhatt Goswami, Raghunath Bhatt Goswami. So when he was traveling, he met various personalities, and he sent them to Vrindavan in order to excavate the Lupta Tirtha Udara, to excavate the holy places which had become dilapidated. Yogo Nashta Parantapa. Things over time, particularly in Kali Yuga, they become um, uh, dilapidated or degrade. Things degrade, particularly in Kali Yuga. The pace of degradation is faster and faster as time goes on. So to excavate holy places, to establish the Bhakta Bhakti Krishna Prem Seva Pravartan, Lupta Tirtha Udara Ara, Vairagya Shikshan, to teach Vairagya renunciation, to establish the principles of what is Bhakta, what is a devotee, what does it mean to be a devotee, what is the etiquette, the mood, the conduct, the learning of a Vaishnav. Bhakti, what is bhakti? What is devotional service? Seva Pravartan, to establish temples, holy places, shrines, where devotional service is taking place, so that individuals can come and engage in devotional service, contribute to Krishna consciousness. So they had certain missions, and to establish the principles, write books to establish the principles of Krishna consciousness based on the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in Vrindavan, most of the books were written in Sanskrit. They were focused on philosophy and theology, and that was the mood of Vrindavan. And then in Bengal, there were most books written after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were in Bengali, and they were focused on his pastimes. Stories like Murari Gupta's Kadachas, Chaitanya Chandra Dwai Natka by Kavi Karnapur, very much focused on the pastimes. So you have Vrindavan, which is philosophy, and then you have Bengal, which is pastimes. So just like if you go to Radhakund, Shamkund, then there's a Sangam, there's a meeting place of the two kunds, and you can walk in between. In the same way, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was like a Sangam between these two. So he was, of course, Jamatpur. Some of you may have been. I went a couple of years ago to Jamatpur, where Kaviraj Goswami grew up. He was, in his formative years, was in Bengal, and then at a certain point, he was sent by Lord Nityananda to Vrindavan, and in Vrindavan, he trained under the Goswamis. He would hear daily at Radhakund from Raghunath Das Goswami for 3 hours. For 3 hours daily, Raghunath Das Goswami would speak about the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as he had experienced them some years before in Jagannath Puri directly. So that was a great source. He saw Rup Sanatana Goswamis, and in this way, Kaviraj Goswami was trained in the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. So Kaviraj Goswami represents this Sangam. He had access to the pastimes, to the narrations of Mahaprabhu's activities, and then he had training under the Goswamis in the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. So in his Chaitanya Charitamrita, Kaviraj Goswami brings these two things together. If you consider a movie, just say there's a 3-hour movie, the producers probably do 300 hours of shooting to produce that 3-hour movie. In the same way, if you have a book, an author produces or publishes a 200-page book, they've probably written 1,000 pages originally, and then they edit out 800 pages and really give the essence to make it readable for the author. Similarly, when an author is writing a biography, he has to ask, what do I include and what do I leave out? How do I condense things? And ultimately, the author will include those things which are the most important, those which are most significant. So in CC, we see that there are many pastimes which are relatively brief. And Kaviraj Goswami says in various places, you can read more in Vrindavan Das Thakur's Chaitanya Bhagavad. That's not his focus. We see that the philosophical discussions are much more elaborate, much deeper. We see at the beginning of Chaitanya Charitamrita. See at the beginning of a book or a presentation, if I've given various seminars on how to give a class in Krishna consciousness. And there are two main ways to begin a class. One is appeal. You tell a funny story, a Prabhupada story, something which captures the audience's attention. The other is, so one is appeal. The second approach is authority. You give some philosophy, you give some verses in order to stamp the authority of what you're going to say. So we see at the beginning of Chaitanya Charitamrita, what Kaviraj Goswami goes for is definitely the authority approach. The first 7 chapters of the Adi Leela are very authoritative. They're steeped in philosophy. They're dense. Many verses are quoted from various scriptures to establish the identity, the position, the authority of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And that is really Kaviraj Goswami's emphasis throughout Chaitanya Charitamrita. Of course, there are many stories which are also given, but those stories are given in the envelope of the philosophy. So there's 5 main conversations in Chaitanya Charitamrita, which there are many conversations. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is engaging with various individuals, many pastimes, but there are 5 main conversations which we see. There are 3 which are with devotees, and that's more like in reach, that's cultivation, that's going deeper. So there's Rupa Shiksha in Madhya Lila, which we're coming to in a few weeks, or maybe months or years. It's chapters 18, 19, like that. Then there's Sanatan Shiksha, which is chapters 20, 21, 22, 23, like that. Mahaprabhu on his travels, he met Rupa Goswami in Prayag at Dash Ashwamedha Ghat. For 10 days, he instructed him in the science of devotion. And off the back of that, Rupa Goswami produced various books, including Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the sequel to Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which is called Ujjvala Nilamani, which focuses in on Madhurya Ras, which is really the essence of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings. Anarpita Charim Chirat Karo Navatirna Kalo Samarpayitum Natujjvala Rasam Swabhakti Shriyam Unnatujjvala Rasa. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is focusing on the Unnatujjvala Rasa, the effulgent rasa, the Madhurya rasa. So this is really what Rupa Goswami focuses in on in terms of the Ujjvala Nilamani, which is the sequel to Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And then there's Ramananda Samvad, chapter 8 of the Madhya Leela, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu becomes a student and Ramananda Rai is the teacher. And Mahaprabhu asks him to go deeper and deeper and deeper into the rasa and tattva of Krishna consciousness. So these 3, Rupa Shiksha, Sanatan Shiksha, Ramananda Samvad, they are in reach, going deeper. And then there's 2 conversations which are more outreach, which is preaching. The first is in Varanasi with Prakashananda Saraswati. Mahaprabhu meets this Mayavadi meets in this Mayavadi stronghold. Srila Prabhupada says that Varanasi is the Vrindavan for the Mayavadis. For us, bhakti in Krishna consciousness, bhakti yoga, the Vrindavan is our main holy place. For the Mayavadis, it's Varanasi. So Mahaprabhu met Prakashananda Saraswati and his followers there in Varanasi, and he preached to them. They asked him something similar to what Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is talking about here. They said, "You're a sannyasi, and actually you're a Mayavadi sannyasi." Mahaprabhu took sannyas from Keshava Bharati. Keshava Bharati was a Mayavadi sannyasi. Why? In order to gain some, I wouldn't say notoriety. Mahaprabhu wasn't looking to be famous, but authority. Taking sannyas from a Mayavadi sannyasi lent Chaitanya Mahaprabhu authority. And that was really his purpose in taking sannyas at all. He was not being treated in the way that he should be being treated. And therefore he took sannyas so that people would listen. People listen to sannyasis more so than anyone else. So when Prakashananda Saraswati when they heard that there was this sannyasi jumping and dancing around in the streets of Varanasi, singing some Hare Krishna mantra, they started to laugh and they said, "What is he doing? What a fool! What a bhavu gera! He's a sentimentalist. What do you chant and dance for? What is a duty of a sannyasi?" The duty of a sannyasi, Prakashananda Saraswati said, is twofold. Number one, he should study Vedanta. And number two, he should meditate. These are the two duties of a sannyasi. Jumping and dancing, what is this? It's a waste of time. It's sentimentalism. Why are you jumping? What is the use of jumping? What does it indicate? So when Prakashananda Saraswati, he wasn't scared. He was a preacher. He was a bold preacher. He could say anything to anyone. So he said to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this is your duty. Just like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is saying now, this is your duty. You should study Vedanta. But then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Kaviraj Goswami quotes, he says, Prabhu kohe, Shun Shripad Ihara Karan, Prabhu kohe Sun Shripad Ihara Karan, Guru More Murkh Dekhi Karila Shashan. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that, please listen, O Shripad, O Prakashananda Saraswati, this is the reason why I'm not studying Vedanta. Because when my guru saw me, when Ishwar Puri saw me, he said, "You're a fool. Guru more murkh dekhi, karila shashan." He chastised me. He said, "Murkh tumi tomara nahi ka Vedanta adhikar. Krishna mantra japa sada e mantra sar." My guru told me that I'm just a fool. Murkh tumi tomara nahi ka Vedanta adhikar. You don't have the qualification for Vedanta, for studying Vedanta. You're a simple boy. You're a fool. Krishna mantra japa sada, mantra sar. My guru told me, when he saw me, he told me, just chant the Hare Krishna Maha mantra. This is the essence of everything. So this was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's response to Prakashananda Saraswati. And it's described that Prakashananda Saraswati and his followers, they were touched by Mahaprabhu. Number one, they were touched by his humility. No, first and foremost, they were touched by his beauty. The first thing they saw is just someone who had walked in, who was just so effulgent, so beautiful. His figure was so imposing. He was 7'6". That's like the tallest basketball players. 7'6". And as tall he was, same width. Navya Grodha Yogendra is described that he was as tall as he was wide. If he put his arms out, he was also 7'6". Ajanu Lambita Bhujo, his arms were so long that they reached down to his knees. Lambita Bhujo. Lamba means long. Bhujo means arms. He had very, very long arms. Chaitanya Bhagavat, Vrindavan Das Thakur begins with this verse. Ajanu Lambita Bhujo Kanakavatato. He had lotus eyes and he had long, long arms. He was so beautiful, so attractive. So the Mayavadi sannyasis were very attracted to this. And then there was his humility. He sat in the place where the shoes are. They'd all taken off their shoes. And he sat there when he first arrived into the fold of the Mayavadi sannyasis, headed by Prakashananda Saraswati. They were attracted to these things. Anyone's attracted to humility. It's such an attractive quality. And then that opened their hearts to hear from Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu began to tell them about various things, including Krishna mantra japa sada, mantra sar. This is the essence. So here with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who is Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya? He's Brihaspati. You know, we see all of the main associates of Mahaprabhu. They have a counterpart, mainly in Vrindavan, but also in other places and spaces. So Brihaspati is the guru of the demigods. That is Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's identity. Sarvabhauma Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had a heritage of great learning. He was an extremely um, well-respected philosopher and scholar. One of the most, he was the priest, the head priest of the Jagannath Puri Mandir. He was advising and guiding all of the rituals and all of the activities in that temple. He was very widely respected. He had a brother. His brother's name was Madhusudan Vachaspati, and he was based in Varanasi. He was also very learned, very scholarly. Um, Jiva Goswami was sent by Lord Nityananda to Madhusudan Vachaspati because he was so famous. And there, Jiva Goswami learnt logic, Nyaya, he learnt Vedanta, he learnt philosophy. And then after that, Jiva Goswami went to Rup Sanatan, and there in Vrindavan, he took shelter of them. So he was a great family, great learning. Um, and here, therefore, he has the strength, the um, the confidence. The Bhattacharya says you should learn Vedanta. And if you want to learn Vedanta, then learn Vedanta from me. So we're just going to move on. Um, maybe Prabhu in Singapore, you can read the Bengali if that's okay. It's nice to.
প্রভু কহে মোরে তুমি করো অনুগ্রহ সেই কর্তব্য তুমি যেই মোরে কহ
Lord Chaitanya replied, "You are very merciful to me, and therefore I think it is my duty to obey your order." Yes, Prabhu.
7 দিন পর্যন্ত ঐছে করেন শ্রবণে ভালো মন্দ নাহি কহে বসি মাত্র শুনে
Thus, for 7 days continually, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu listened to the Vedanta philosophy expounded by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. However, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not say anything and did not indicate whether it was right or wrong. He simply sat there and listened to the Bhattacharya. Such patience, 7 days. Who knows how many hours per day? Yes, Prabhu.
অষ্টম দিবসে তারে পুছে সার্বভৌম 7 দিন করো তুমি বেদান্ত শ্রবণ
On the 8th day, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, "You've been listening to Vedanta philosophy from me continually for 7 days.
ভালো মন্দ নাহি কহ রহ মৌন ধরি বুঝো কি না বুঝো ইহা বুঝিতে না পারি
You've simply been listening, fixed in your silence. Since you do not say whether you think it is right or wrong, I cannot know whether you're actually understanding Vedanta philosophy or not." Yeah, so and this is why online classes are more difficult because there's no feedback from the audience. You can't really see the audience, and it can be a little uh, impersonal, I guess, in a way. Okay, yes, please.
প্রভু কহে মূর্খ আমি নাহি অধ্যয়ন তোমার অজ্ঞাতে মাত্র করিয়ে শ্রবণ
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, "I am a fool, and consequently, I do not study the Vedanta Sutra. I am just trying to hear it from you because you have ordered me." It's so amazing. You have someone as great. I mean, this is a Supreme Personality of Godhead speaking, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we see something similar with Rup Sanatana Goswamis, for example, when they come in front of Mahaprabhu, they say Nicha Jati, Nicha Sangi. They have low birth, bad association, bad habits. We're the most fallen. We're like worms in stool. This is how they approach Mahaprabhu. Here, Mahaprabhu is calling himself a fool. We just said with Prakashananda Saraswati, he calls himself a fool. How humble. What kind of an example do we have? This kind of humility melts the heart, especially when it's genuine, when someone really feels like they're humble. Uh, when Gopakumar in Caitanya, he's going around and he's looking and speaking with and engaging with so many great personalities. He's looking for the person who's received the most mercy from the Lord. And he comes to Prahlad Maharaj. And Prahlad Maharaj, he's glorifying him, saying what a pure devotee he is, what the depth of his faith, how surrendered he is. And Prahlad Maharaj, all he can do is think about his faults. Who can fault Prahlad Maharaj? Prahlad Maharaj finds a way because a humble devotee, when they look at others, they may be an ocean of faults, but a really humble devotee will find some good. Just like a bee, if there's a pile of rubbish, somewhere the bee will find a flower with some nectar. And in the same way, when one is looking oneself, a Vaishnava may be an ocean of good qualities, but they'll find some fault. So Prahlad Maharaj says, look at me. Look at what a low birth I had. Look at my parents, particularly my father. Look at his terrible, heinous activities. Look at my association. Look at who I've spent time with. Naturally, any individual is affected by their association. And like that, he goes on at length describing his unlimited disqualifications. That's the nature of a Vaishnav. They consider themselves to be insignificant and others to be great. So Mahaprabhu is exhibiting this. I'm a fool. Okay, there's a purple here. Yes, Prabhu.
সন্ন্যাসীর ধর্ম লাগি শ্রবণ মাত্র করি তুমি যেই অর্থ করো বুঝিতে না পারি
Only for the sake of executing the devoted duties of the renounced order of sannyas do I listen. Unfortunately, I cannot in the least understand the meaning you are presenting. Purport. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu presented himself as if he were a sannyasi in name only, or, in other words, a number one fool. Mayavadi sannyasis in India are very much accustomed to declaring themselves Jagat Gurus, teachers of the world, although they have no information of the outside world and are limited in their experience to a small town or village, or perhaps to the country of India. Nor do such sannyasis have sufficient education. Unfortunately, at the present moment, there are many foolish sannyasis, both in India and elsewhere, who simply read and study Vedic literature without understanding the purports. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was having his discussion with the Chandkazi, the Muslim magistrate of Navadvip, he recited a verse from Vedic literature to the effect that the order of sannyas is prohibited in this age of Kali. Only those who are very serious and who follow the regulative principles and study Vedic literature should accept sannyas. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu approved of a sannyasi's reading the Vedanta Sutra or Brahma Sutra, but he did not approve the Shariraka commentary of Shankaracharya. Shariraka commentary of Shankaracharya. Indeed, he said elsewhere, Mayavadi Bhashya Shunile Hoy Sarvanash. If one hears a Shariraka Bhashya of Shankaracharya, he is doomed. Thus, a sannyasi, a transcendentalist, must read the Vedanta Sutra regularly, but he should not read the Shariraka Bhashya. This is the conclusion of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The real commentary of on the Vedanta Sutra is Srimad Bhagavatam. Arthoyam Brahmasutranam. Srimad Bhagavatam is the original commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, written by the author himself, Srila Vyasadeva. So there's a lot that can be said on this topic also. Vyasadeva was penning the Vedic literatures. So vast, so broad. So then he wrote the Vedic literatures or summarized them in the form of sutras. And that is called a Vedanta Sutra. They are aphorisms. And the ordinary person, if they read it, you couldn't figure out what it means. Very complicated. But this is what he produced. And then, of course, he felt dissatisfied. If you were at the program last night, then Hari Parshad was mentioning this pastime of how Vyasadeva penned the Vedic literatures but felt so dissatisfied at heart. If you perform devotional service, then naturally you're satisfied. There's a bliss. But he didn't feel that. So the Nard Muni came and he said, your work is verily condemned. Jugupsitam. Actually, you're cheating humanity because you're giving them a reason to justify sense gratification in the name of dharma, religiosity. You're misleading society. He said you need to write one literature which really gives the essence of everything that you've said, which really gives a very clear understanding of what the goal of spiritual life is. Because the people of Kali Yuga, Prayinalpayushya Sabhya, Kalavasmin Yugejana, Manda Sumanda Mateo, Manda Bhage Upadrita. This is 1110 from the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's described that Vyasadeva could see the people of Kali Yuga who were about to come, and they were lazy in spiritual matters, short memory, short lived, misguided, and always distracted. That's the nature of the people of Kali Yuga. So you need to make it simple for them. Write one literature which gives one fundamental message, which makes everything clear, and which will allow people to make their lives successful. And therefore, the Srimad Bhagavatam is understood to be the mature fruit of the desire tree of Vedic literatures. Nigam kalpataror karitam phalam shukamukhad amrita dravya samyutam is really the essence of all Vedic literatures. And it helps an individual to understand very clearly what is the goal of life. Krishna in Vrindavan. Krishna in Vrindavan. So it's not even Krishna in Mathura or Krishna in Dwarka, Krishna in Vrindavan, and therefore the apex of Krishna's pastimes, or the apex of so the essence of the Vedic literatures is given in the Vedanta Sutra. The essence of the Vedanta Sutra is the Srimad Bhagavatam. And the essence of the Srimad Bhagavatam is a 10th canto. And the essence of the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam is Krishna in Vrindavan. And there's also an essence of Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. So this is the essence of the essence of the essence of the essence of the essence. Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. And in a similar way, Rupa Goswami has written the Nectar of Instruction. Upadesh Amrita, the essence of all instructions. So there are so many instructions given in Vedic literatures, and even within Gaudiya Vaishnavism, there are so many instructions. This is the essence of all instruction, the Upadesh Amrita. And then in verse 8, Rupa Goswami gives the verse, and he says, Iti Upadesha Saram, this is the essence of all instructions. So he's giving the essence of all instructions, or the essence of all instructions, and that is to 24 hours a day to be absorbed in Vrindavan, to be absorbed in the topics of Vrindavan and the Vrajvasis. So, especially for those devotees who have been practicing Krishna consciousness for some time, our movement is slowly opening up to the idea that, yes, devotees should read about Vrindavan, read about the topics of Vrindavan, read about, hear about, and meditate on the name, form, qualities, abode, associates, and pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We can tend to become a society of, we call it the International Society of Krishna Consciousness. But sometimes we can become the International Society of Anartha Consciousness. We speak so much about lust, anger, pride, envy, and illusion. So much about neti, neti, not this, not this, not this. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that by focusing too much on Anartha Nivriti, we can end up becoming like Mayavadis. Neti, neti, not this, not this, not this. At some point, Saraswati Thakur coined this phrase, there has to be more focus on Artha Pravritti. There's Anartha Nivriti, but then there is Artha Pravritti, cultivating the positive aspects of devotion. And as we gain this higher taste, Param Drishtva Nivartate, as we become more and more conversant in and attached to the name, form, qualities, abode, associates, and pastimes of the Lord, then naturally anartha nivriti takes place. We let go in a very natural way of those things which have a lesser taste. So we have to learn especially those devotees who are a little more mature in Krishna consciousness, we have to learn to become absorbed in the topics of Krishna, to hear about Krishna, his wonderful, sweet pastimes, his beautiful form, his abode, his flute playing. And therefore, what we're doing right now is that we're traveling with the books of Srila Shivaram Swami. These books are in the same vein as the Krishna book. Maharaj is following in the mission of his spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, our founder Acharya, to inject Krishna consciousness into the corpus of the society so that devotees can be blissful. The more we focus on the anarthas and the problems and the troubles, the more we become dejected, sad, and troubled. But actually hearing about Krishna, matchitta matkata prana bodhayantascha parashparam katyantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. When devotees come together, what do? They hear about topics of Krishna. We see this in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Mahaprabhu visits Haridas Thakur daily when he's in Puri. He does his noontime duties and then he visits Haridas Thakur. And at a certain point, with Haridas Thakur is Sanatana Goswami. Another time, there's Rupa Goswami. And what do? They talk about topics of Krishna. What is your latest composition? What is your meditation? What is your inspiration? And they discuss, they talk. And in this way, tushyanti cha ramanti cha. Devotees become very satisfied. They become very blissful, ramanti. This is Krishna consciousness. And this is priceless. This is priceless. So devotees, more and more I see that they're coming together, they're reading together, they're hearing together, they're discussing topics of Krishna. And this is real life. Tava Kathamritam, Tapta Jivanam. Topics of Krishna are real life. It's not Sahajiism. I remember once there was a devotee. This is when I was in the Brahmacharya ashram at Bhaktivedanta Manor. I spent almost 10 years there. And then I moved 9 years ago to ISKCON, Hungary, and I live in Budapest Temple now. So he was visiting the manor. He'd lived in our ashram before, and then he went elsewhere. I think he went to Mayapur, lived there for a few years, and then he returned to the manor just to pay us a visit. And one day I was having lunch with him. He was a German body devotee, actually. And I was having lunch with him, and we were just talking, and he was speaking about Krishna. And he was so inspired, and it was a wonderful conversation. But I had a meeting at 2. So at 2 o'clock or just before 2, I said, Prabhu, I'm really sorry. I have to wash my plate and I have to run because I have a meeting. And he said, what meeting? And I was a little, taken aback. And I said, Prabhu, it's just a prearranged meeting. I'm really sorry. I want to continue this conversation, but I really have to go. I apologize. And he said, everyone here just seems to be too busy. I talk for 10 minutes about Krishna and then everyone has to run. No one wants to hear about Krishna. No one wants to talk about Krishna. Are we the International Society for Krishna Consciousness? Are we really the International Society for Krishna Consciousness? If we are, then why everyone so averse about talking about Krishna? What's the problem? So this was this devotee's outburst. And I still remember it was maybe 15 years ago, maybe 13 years ago. It was an outburst and it was strong, but he had a point. I find that in our circles, it's relatively rare. It is increasing, thankfully, but it's relatively rare that devotees speak about Krishna. And when someone does, then they can seem out of place, out of sorts, not normal, not doing the right thing, probably just a pretender, probably just a bit of a sahajiya. That may be a problem. That may be a problem for the gradual development of our Krishna consciousness. We need to make a space, I feel, where devotees are comfortable in talking about topics of Krishna. I think a good opener to the conversation is, what are you reading right now? And then that leads to a natural kind of discussion on topics of Krishna, philosophy as well as pastimes, insights from the acharyas, headed by Srila Prabhupada, and so on. But it could happen more, and this is what we're trying to encourage. So the books that we're sharing are really inspiring devotees in that direction. So they're very, very beautiful. And if anyone would like some, then we have some beautiful sets so devotees can get in touch with me. I'm going to stop there and see if there's any comments, questions, corrections, criticisms, complaints.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. That's a sloka where, which you are saying, Ajanu Lambita Bhujo Karuna Kankavatato, Kankavatato, Sankirtana Pitaro Kamalayataksha, Viswambharo Dijavaro, Yugadharma Palo, Vande Jagata Priyakaro, Karunavatar. That's a beautiful sloka, Prabhu. Can you just little bit say the meaning again, please? You did already.
Sure. So this verse describes Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Yeah.
This is the opening verse of the Chaitanya Bhagavat, and I'm just going to um, show you here the verse for those who are less familiar with it, but because we have the facility of projecting our screen, we can show it easily. Ajanu Lambita Bhujo. Yeah. So I offer my respectful obeisances unto Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sri Nityananda Prabhu, whose arms extend down to their knees. Yeah. So Ajanu Lambita Bhujo means their arms extend down to their knees. And who have golden yellow complexions. Ganakavadhato. Yeah. They've inaugurated the congregational chanting of the holy names of the Lord. Yeah. So Sankirtanaika Pitaro. Pita means father. So sometimes I think of this like they're the godfathers.
Yeah.
Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu are the godfathers of the mission of the congregational chanting of the holy names of the Lord. They're the godfathers. So they're there, they're watching over our activities, they're inspiring us, they're empowering us. They've inaugurated this mission, and we are acting as their limbs to continue on with this mission. And therefore, many of you are Indian bodied. Kaviraj Goswami says, भारत भूमिते होइला मनुष्य जन्म जार जन्म सार्थ kori kore para upakar. We have to engage our energies. If you're born in Bharat, my Guru Maharaj, I was born in London, but my Guru Maharaj says, okay, but you're a Bharatiya. You're of Bharat descent. And even if you're not, even if we're Western, then we have this heritage. We are Achyuta Gotra. Yeah. This is our lineage. This is our inheritance. This is our legacy. And therefore, this is our duty to carry on with the family business, to preach and share Krishna consciousness far and wide, and engage our energies in doing so. Every Indian family should give one child to the Krishna consciousness movement, full time. Brahmacharis are dying out. Sannyasis outside of India are almost extinct. New sannyasis coming in. Who are going to be the future sannyasis?
Yes.
What's the future of the movement? If we don't have devotees who are giving their lives. And most of the time, Indian families, including my own, are too attached to economic development, dharma, artha, kama. Even devotees in becoming successful in this world and not continuing on with the mission. They have to be devotees who give their lives fully. Prabhupada said, just give this one life. That's what he expected from all of his followers at the beginning. That tradition is dying out, where devotees are ready to give their lives and give everything. That's our humble attempt, and I beg for the blessings. I don't want to sound puffed up in any way, shape, or form. This is our humble attempt, and we live on the blessings of the devotees of the Vaishnavas. And if I upset you, then I'll be kicked out within 5 minutes. So that's not my intention here. I'm just trying to voice what I feel would please Srila Prabhupada. And I feel that Prabhupada would want this tradition to continue, where our temples are bustling with devotees, with young, youthful energy, who are going out and preaching Krishna consciousness far and wide to the Indians as well as to the local population, the Americans. giving them Krishna consciousness, distributing transcendental literature, doing Harinam, doing prasadam distribution, and showing the wonderful, beautiful Vedic culture, the wonderful, beautiful Krishna consciousness movement, displaying that in all its glory and giving them a chance for actually perfecting their lives, making their lives useful, giving value to their lives. So this is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we have beautiful Gauranitai deities downstairs. This is their innermost desire. This is how to really please them. The best way to please Gauranitai is kirtan, but in the temple room. But the real best way to please them is going out and doing Sankirtan,
Yeah.
distribution and Hari. That's really how to please them.
Mm.
This is what I'll be most pleased by. If the temple's empty because all of the devotees are out distributing books and doing Harinam and Prasadam distribution, and they all come back in the evening tired but blissful and with beautiful results of so much Prasadam, Harinam, and books going out, then Gauranitai will be so pleased. So pleased. This is really our mission.
Thank you very much.
Um,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That reminds me another sloka also, which my senior Prabhu taught us, that a great sage among many millions who are liberated and perfect in knowledge of liberation, one may be a devotee of Lord Narayana or Krishna. Each devotee who are fully peaceful and extremely rare. That's what Muktanam Abhi Siddhanam. Narayana Parayana Sudurlabha Prasannatma Kotisvapi Mahamuni.
Yes. Yes, very nice verse.
That reminds me that. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Nice class.
Thank you very much.
Lot of information.
Yeah, this is the verse. Muktanam Siddhanam Narayana
Parayana
Prashantatma Kotishvapi Mahamuni.
Mahamuni.
Absolutely. Anyone else before we finish? Okay, everyone, thank you so much for your time and attention this morning.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Very nice class.
On a wonderful day of Krishna consciousness. And Granth Raj Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Philadelphia ki jai.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ananda Chaitanya Prabhu. It's a very straightforward and powerful, direct message. This is the words of a sadhu. You're living the life, and you spoke about it very, very clearly. And I heard the message that you were saying, especially towards the end, regarding our conversations really need to be more absorbed, on the teachings and pastimes of Lord Krishna. And I can speak for myself. As you were saying that, I reflect on how much conversation goes on throughout the day with devotees specifically about this is wrong, that is wrong, we need to correct this, we need to correct that, this shouldn't be like this shouldn't be like that. And it still may be in the mood of kind of positive progression as far as anartha nivritti. We're trying to correct an anartha within ourselves, or maybe suggest more often than not somebody else. But this is a pattern we can easily be stuck in, and then the taste for Krishna and even a forgetfulness of Krishna can take place. And to guard against this and make as I say, the real thing the real thing. That is, I thank you so much for reminding us of that. And I would also say challenging us to become better in that way.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you for your hospitality. It's been wonderful to visit. And I invite everyone to please come to Hungary sometime. We have a beautiful community there, beautiful deity, 750 acres of land. Summertime's a beautiful time to visit. We have I reside in Budapest, which is just 2 hours north, and a beautiful temple there also, where there's various activities of preaching and spreading Krishna consciousness going on. So please visit sometime. Open invitation to everyone on the call and beyond.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you so much, everyone, and wish everyone a wonderful Krishna conscious day.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Beautiful
Hare
class.
Krishna.
Vanchakalpatarupasya
Shukra Sindhu Devacha Patitam Pavanam